Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegrand, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. On this episode, David and Hoges recap the Twins' 3-game series against the Colorado Rockies. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me today in studio, Andrew Hoganson, Dan Thompson, using an excuse as a teacher's last week of the semester. If I remember school right, Hoges, isn't it just like field day? What is he so worried about?
Yeah, don't they just like wheel in a television and they just have you watch it? Like, what does he have to do today even?
No, you would think this would be the easiest week of school for him. I don't know what he's so concerned about, but he'll be back on Sunday. Filling in for me. It's my anniversary this week, Hoges. So my wife and I are going to be getting away, and so it'll be good to hear you and Dan on the podcast. But Hoges, we've been waiting. It's finally happened. The City Connect jerseys dropped. What do you think, Hoges?
So this is going to sound weird, but I don't necessarily like the color yellow. And as we all know, I'm a Packer fan, so green and gold. But I just, it's not my favorite color. It just isn't. So the first I saw them, I had a kind of negative reaction. I didn't really like the yellow. But the more I looked at it, the more I looked into the history. Lake Minnetonka from Purple Rain on the bill of the cap, the ripple effect. I'm in love with the ripple effect. I got to say, David, I like them. I like them a lot. Like maybe they could have been a little bit better, but I think they're pretty sweet. I'd say it was a solid triple.
A solid triple? Hey, that's a good way to phrase it here. I like them also. I do like that they have MN on the front because it's just like the podcast, yes. Men for the Win. I was a big fan of that. I think we had a listener say that we should add For the Win underneath it. We should all buy jerseys and just put For the Win under them at the MN.
Well, it looks very similar to like the podcast magnets too. So I like it. Maybe we can get some royalties out of this whole thing. Maybe. Seems like a bit of a stretch. Maybe.
But it is cool though. Other people must be really liking them because they are all over the place at Target Field. You look in the stands and you see almost as many of those new jerseys as you see at least those Pablo jerseys that they're handing out.
I'm excited to see them in action because I think they're going to look pretty cool. And the one thing that they were interviewing a bunch of the players, and one thing one of them said, I think it may have been Joe Ryan, is that the one thing with being last, because the Twins are the last jerseys of the City Connect for MLB because the A's and the Yankees decided not to do it, shockingly. But you're going to have some teams that are like, oh, you kind of look like the Brewers one or something like that, which sure, they do, but there's 30 teams. I mean, eventually you're 28 that did these jerseys. You're going to look like some of the other ones. I think it was pretty solid, and it's going to be very hard for me not to buy a jersey.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched the drop video where they have Slug from Atmosphere doing it was so good. So much drip, you're going to make another lake. What a good line. What a good line. My goodness. I was a big Atmosphere fan from way back in the day. So those were my high school days here, showing my age a bit.
One more thing I want to say about it is I am so annoyed with the people who say that, that just looks exactly like my beer league softball team's jerseys. That's the point. I mean, we talked about this with the Guardians jerseys. I like them, but they look too much like they could just be their regular uniforms. They're supposed to be different. They're supposed to be wild. Like the Padres, like even like the South Side ones for the White Sox. Like they're supposed to be something that looks way different that you could see in a beer league softball team. So I like that the Twins did that, and it wasn't just like what you were talking about. It was just going to be super Minnesotan with like a hot dish on the front of it or something.
The cherry and the spoon.
Yes.
The whole bit. Yeah.
With MSP. When you said the MSP with like the plane logo for the airport, I'm like, no, they can't do that.
Before we get into the series recap, a couple of notes here. First of all, there was a little bit of a miscommunication between Dan and I, and we neglected to talk about Buxton's foul tip passed ball in Pirates Game 3, top of the first when the Twins scored 3 runs. One of those runs was scored off of Buxton's check swing that definitely hit the bat, but the ump called it a passed ball. It was a very confusing play. I think either we had it in the notes and it got deleted. We normally try and hit every high point in the series, and this just felt like a major one that we missed.
So I can expand on that a little bit. I was sitting in right field in literally the highest seat that you can possibly sit in right field when that happened. And we all looked at each other like, that was a foul ball, right? Like he hit that. And I ended up going to the bathroom, and the radio announcers were livid. Like the Pittsburgh radio announcers, just livid that they missed it. I went to the bathroom again, like 6 innings later. They were still talking about how they have no idea how the umpires missed that call. And we would have lost. Like that run doesn't score. The Twins lose in 9 innings. And I would have gone home very, very sad. So, yeah, it was a big play.
My goodness. So, anyway, a little bit of a correction on that front. And then a couple of notes just about the Rockies in general. Jake Cave returns to Target Field. The media team of Target Field put together a tribute video for Jake Cave, which is it's a classy move, Hogs.
Did it start off with your clip saying, "You are Jake Cave"? You are a Major League Baseball player. And then boom. How awesome would that have been if that was the beginning?
Man, best intro ever. The Twins did not contact me for the rights to that particular clip, unfortunately. Blackman, Hogs, he is, in my head, he is the Salvador Perez of the NL, in that I just assume that guy must be 100 years old, because I think he's played baseball since I was a baby. Like, that's a guy who is 37 years old, Hogs, been in the league since like 2011.
It's like when you look up how old Morgan Freeman is. Like, I've probably looked up how old he is 100 times, and he's always 72. Like, it's Perez and Blackman fit that same mold. Like, they should be 50 now, but they're not. Like, how is that possible?
Last note here before we move into the series recap. As you sort of alluded to, you were at the Pittsburgh series. Tell us about the trip, Hogs.
It was absolutely phenomenal. Like, to be honest, we picked Pittsburgh just because of PNC Park. Heard a lot of great things about it, but the city itself of Pittsburgh is phenomenal. I could not encourage people enough to go out there. The people that we met out there were phenomenal. It's fun because that team is in the same kind of spot that we are. Not a lot of success. They haven't won since 79. We haven't won since 91. The fans were phenomenal to trash talk with and just have a good time. We ran into a lot of Twins fans out there. I'd like to call a few of them out just in case any of them are listeners or starting listening. But Tom and Lisa, again, sorry we stood you up at the bar in the top of the third for the third inning, but we had a phenomenal weekend with you before that. Ed and Amy, airport guys that weren't actually airport guys, and then Brent and his group of 900 people that all came to the game with him. It was phenomenal talking to all of you. The stadium itself was absolutely beautiful. Like, I've been to Oracle, and that might be the only other one where the Giants play that I could possibly put above PNC Park, but the river in the background, the yellow bridges, like everything about it was just absolutely stunning. If you haven't been there, I couldn't recommend it more. The city was awesome. It was a phenomenal trip, minus the first 2 baseball games, if we're being honest. But hey, At least we scored some runs in the third one.
I called it a Yankees hangover why they lost those first 2 games, and honestly, that is the most logical explanation that I've seen.
It's honestly what it felt like. And walking out of that stadium on Saturday night, like, you'd expect to hear some jeering or anything like that. And all the Pittsburgh Pirates fans were just like, we can't believe we won 2 games in a row. Like this is amazing. How did we do this? And we're like, we haven't scored yet.
That's a big reason why. Let's finally get into it here, Hogs. Series recap.
Series recap.
Well, this one starts off about as well as you could hope, Hogs. Twins win this one 5-0 with Chris Paddock, the law enforcement officer, on the mound. Finding his form, Hogs, back to his ace level stuff.
I don't understand him at all. Like, he's hot, then he's cold. It makes no sense. And they made Doe kept pointing out how he was saying, I don't know if you remember, but 3 starts ago, he said he had dead arm, which is pretty concerning for a guy that's had Tommy John as many times as he had. All of his stuff was like 3 miles per hour faster in this game. So it seemed like a pretty good start for him. It was good to get a shutout, be on the opposite end of that, and to actually put up some runs too.
Yeah, so on that note, Paddock was hitting 98 miles an hour on his fastball, and he was crediting Cole Sands for the additional speed. But I'm convinced, as you mentioned, Toad, this guy has had a lot of operations on his arm, and I think this is a Rookie of the Year situation, where during his rehab, he must have twisted his arm in a certain direction, and now he can just throw the ball that much faster.
Does it just work like every 4 starts or something like that, though? As long as he's not tipping his pitches, maybe that's what it works. Like, he had to get a little mechanical adjustment from Cole Sands. Cole Sands is his, like, mechanic, and that's why we're in this situation.
But Paddock was pulled in the top of the 7th in favor of Okert, then Jackson Castillo, who Castillo recently got DFA'd. So maybe we'll see him again, maybe we won't. But Jax has been lights out per usual. Okert has been better than the season started. A couple of notes here. Top second, Correa jumps for a ball that he is convinced he needs to leap for, but he realizes, thankfully, right in time that he should not have leapt for the ball, and he had to throw his glove down so he didn't get nailed in the face.
I watched that so many times because the first time it happened, it looked like it was just like a really hard hit ball. It wasn't. And to be fair to Correa, I think it knuckled off the bat pretty good, so he thought it was going somewhere else. But his reaction was hilarious, where he was just like pointing at his mouth and being like, I almost lost some teeth there. Like, he's one of the best defensive shortstops in the league, and to see him him a ball like that just mess with him so much was pretty funny to see. And thankfully he didn't get hurt. And it ended up being a pretty good reflexive catch.
Yeah, I mean, Farmer was like, trust me, man, you don't want that ball to the face here. I've experienced it.
Would you call that line drive routine, or was that the more difficult one?
Okay, we'll get into routine plays a bit later here, Hogs. But bottom third, Margot. You're going to hear a lot about Manny Margot in this particular series, but he triples, and then your guy, Hogs, Vasquez, sack flies him home. These are two guys who are just, for whatever reason, deciding to produce.
It's like they get to the bare minimum of where the Twins are like, we have to DFA you. Like, we just cannot keep you on the team anymore. And then they hit like a little hot streak for a little bit. And then we shut up about them for a while. And then 3 series from now, we're going to be like, how are these guys still on the team? It was for sure a theme in this series, though.
When you said it was like, I was ready with the sounder, Hogs.
Ogres are like onions.
But I got to remember, I'm not recording with Dan, because Dan definitely would have had a metaphor there. I'm just not sure what it would have been. But so bottom 4 here. Bottom 4, Correa hits a double, which scores Lewis, who got to second base, Hogs, after a whole bunch of balls that should have been double plays. Like, that's the moral of the story. But sooner or later, Royce Lewis ended up on second. Correa doubles him home. And then in the bottom 8, we're going to talk about it later, but a lot of runs scored in the bottom of the 8th to make sure the Twins put this one away.
Yeah, this game was pretty high leverage situation for Okert and Jax when they came into this game, which I like to see that they're trusting Okert, and we'll get to that later too, with trusting that lefty in those situations.
Yeah, lefties are going to be a pretty common theme here in this episode. So let's go on to game 2, Hogs. This is the one the Twins lost, and probably the most frustrating. Twins lose this one 5-4. A lot of interesting things to note. First of all, Louis Varland is making a spot start. Nobody really explains why, other than Rocco's like, it's a day of rest. He gave a Sabbath approach to the starting rotation to bring up Varland for the spot start.
When I saw it, I had to pull up my schedule. I'm like, is it a double header? Like, what is going on? And like, did they already like postpone today's game because they thought the rain was coming? I was super confused. This didn't make any sense, and it was kind of ironic too, because it was not ironic, but it was right after you guys were talking about Festa possibly getting pulled up, and then they bring Varland, who, as you astutely pointed out, was kind of struggling in AAA. Like, he wasn't doing that great.
Yeah, but he does well here. 5 innings pitched, only 1 hit, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. None of the stuff that was hit. I mean, he gave up some fly balls, but nothing that even looked remotely close to a home run. I mean, Dick Bramer wouldn't have even called those balls as home runs, Hogue.
Yeah, it was good to see him out there have a good start. Hopefully this is good for his confidence, and he was instantly sent down after the game ended.
The fact that he knew that, though, going into it, I think had to be sort of a relief. Like, there was no chance, even if he pitched a 9-inning shutout, right, like a one-hitter, they were still going to send him down. It wasn't going to matter what he did.
100%, but it did seem like they announced it like in the 6th inning, like that he was getting sent down. Like, we're already going to make the roster move right now. Go clean out your clubhouse and walk to St. Paul.
Oh, man. I've heard of guys getting traded, but sent down mid-game. That's a rough one. So then Quantrill, who the Twins are very familiar with, Hoax, and apparently he just owns them, like absolutely owns the Minnesota Twins. But so he made them look quite silly. 6 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts, only 3 hits, and all of the hits were really weak contact.
That's what was so frustrating about this game, because, I mean, Varland had them right in there, and we'll get into how Thielbar like blew this game. But why, in a game like this, you got to put up more numbers. This is not a good baseball team, and to waste a start like that with 0 earned runs in 5 innings, and a guy like Quantrill, he's good. I know he's good, but like the Twins have a habit of making these medium ace level guys look like Cy Young Award winners this year. It seems like half of the Pirates rotation.
They were good. I love how Dan walked away from that. Like, the Pirates are really good pitching wise. I'm like, I don't really think they're that good. They're that good. But anyway, bottom second here, Castro gets hit by a pitch again. Can somebody explain to me what Willie Castro is doing that's allowing him to get hit? He's getting hit more than Rizzo gets hit, Hoax.
Well, that's what I was just going to bring up. Like, when you watch Rizzo in the batter's box, he's hanging over the plate. Like, half the times Rizzo gets hit, it could be a strike. Let's be honest. Yeah. Does Castro do that? Like, I don't notice that at all. And
no, because he's always getting hit in the front of the leg. Like, it's his right knee that he just keeps getting hit, and I don't understand why.
His reaction in Pittsburgh when he got hit in the 10th inning or whenever it was the last time, he was so mad, and I didn't blame him one bit, because he wasn't going to charge them out, because it was like a bases loaded situation. You know they're not actually going to hit you. But instantly, every single Pittsburgh Pittsburgh Pirate fans started booing. And at first we were confused. Like, are you mad at this guy for being mad? Have you seen how many times he's been hitting this series? And then we realized, oh no, they are booing the pitcher right now. They are definitely not booing Castro.
As we talked about too, Shelton was just leaving the pitcher in there
forever.
Like, it didn't matter what happened. He was still going to be throwing the ball even if he had to toss it underhand. Another note about Castro, do you know this? He has played in every game this season for the Twins.
I was stunned when I saw that you added that note. I would not have guessed that at all, but it just shows you how valuable he is to this team and when he can produce, and even when he's just getting on base by getting plunked.
So top fifth, Varland, as we mentioned, pitched very well, but he has 2 outs in the top of the fifth. There's a runner on first, and there's a fly ball hit to left field, Hogs. I would argue this ball is routine, should be caught, and Manny Margot, I don't know what it is. I know that he's an MLB player, but he never looks confident making a catch in center field, or in left field, or in right field for that matter. And in this instance, in left field, a catch he certainly should have made.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think part of it is we have a little bit of Michael A. Taylor colored glasses where we're just so used to him being phenomenal out in the outfield. We were expecting Margot to fill that role, and he just hasn't, and they're not even trying to. Like, defensively, he is a detriment to this team right now, and when he's not producing offensively, which I guess he did in this series, and so we have to be quiet about him for a while, but it's just so frustrating because we were used to what Michael A. Taylor did out there.
Yeah, so moving forward here, top of the sixth, Thielbar comes in a rough outing here. No innings pitched, 3 hits, 4 earned runs with a single, a walk, a home run, and a double, and it would have been a home run if it was 3 inches to the left here, Hogs.
It just looks like batting practice out there right now. Like, it's been rough for him, and he knows it too.
Yeah, he had some. I didn't even put the quotes in the notes here because they're so just like a guy who's down, and we don't need to push him any more than he already is.
I agree. I had like a tear in my eye reading him.
But bottom of the seventh, Hogs, Willie Castro is really featured in this episode, I guess, but he forgets the count and takes ball 4 and then just stays at home waiting for the next pitch. And it's super embarrassing. So the ump has to say to him, hey man, it's a walk. You can go to first. This reminds me, we didn't mention this. I had it in the notes, but I forgot to bring it up. In the Yankees series, he also forgot how many outs there were. There were 2 outs, and he slid back to first base because it was a line out to the shortstop. And so this is the 3rd time now this season that he's forgotten how many outs there are. Folks, I haven't forgotten how many outs there are this season that many times thus far.
Do you think it's in his head a little bit where he's
it's gotta be.
He's like uber focused on it. You know, like there's some of those people who, like, the second you call something out to them, they screw up it more. Like it's like has the opposite effect. He might be one of those dudes who got like too hyper focused on it, and now we're in for a long one.
But in this inning, there was some offensive pop from the Twins here. Buxton with a deep shot to center, a 2-run home run, bringing in himself and Castro. So continuing in the bottom 7th, it's just a comedy of errors here. So Santana's already on first. Miranda hits one deep to left. Santana thinks it's going to drop for sure. So he's already rounded second. But Jake Cave, he makes the play, of course, because he's Jake Cave. He throws it in to the cutoff man, and they double up Santana at first. Just some mental mistakes here for this team.
We had a lot of them in this series, too. I mean, Kyle Farmer had about 7 in today's game. So, yeah, it was frustrating to see. They had some of those in the Pittsburgh Pirates, too, with the one that you talked about with Buxton. I don't know if we're just not reading the ball well when it's out in the field, or if it's a Tommy Watkins deal, which I'm sure you think it is, but yeah, it's been frustrating. We can't have those outs on the bases, especially in a game like this.
I can't compete with you physically, and you're no match for my brains.
So at top of the 8th, McMahon takes Sands deep, so it puts the Rockies up 3. And then bottom 9, Castro actually doubles. Santana hits a 2-run shot, makes it a 1-run game, but the Twins can't complete the comeback. A very disappointing game because certainly one the Twins could have come away with.
Absolutely. I mean, you take out that Thielbar outing and this game looks entirely different.
All right, well, moving on to Game 3, Hogs. My goodness, what a confusing baseball game. Twins win this one 17-9, which doesn't sound like a baseball score, but my goodness, it took forever because there was a 45-minute rain delay. No extra innings required, but with this score, I mean, there wouldn't be, except for every time the Twins get to extra innings, they score like 8 runs in the 10th. So
here's how I want to sum up this game. We had a baseball game where the Twins were winning 5-1 in the first inning, that in the 8th, Duran had to come in a high leverage situation that we ended up winning 17-9. Like, how can all 3 of those things be true? Like, it just makes no sense.
Yes, it was a very confusing game, but the Twins had 17 runs on 24 hits, went 11 for 17 with runners in scoring position, which if the Twins could just figure out how to spread their offense out a little bit, their record would be undefeated this season.
I mean, so we've talked about how hot and cold this team has been in series and games. Now we're just going for innings at this point in time. Where, yeah, we're gonna win 18 in a row. Well, we're gonna score 18 runs in one inning, and then we're gonna go on a 36-inning shutout streak. Like, it's just so frustrating. But that 24 hits is actually the most in Major League Baseball this year so far by any team.
Well, what do you know? So Pablo Lopez on the mound, he does okay. Goes 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned run, 5 strikeouts. He threw 91 pitches. You would have loved to see him get through 6, but I mean, at least he's not giving up a 7 spot, which has sort of seemed like the norm for him as of late.
Yeah, it's a little sad that we're calling this a great start from him, but hopefully that's a good bounce back one and he can start turning it around from here.
So top first, there's a poor throw from Vasquez on Doyle stealing, which allows Doyle to get to third, and then he gets sac flied in. But there's a double that happens at the end of the first inning here, Hogs. And Glenn Perkins on the radio, he's talking about Pablo Lopez. It was an 0-2 count that this guy smacked for a double. And he's like, you can't throw a pitch like that on 0-2. It's too good. It got too much of the plate. If Glenn Perkins on the Twins radio network, Hogs, can be upset at an 0-2 count being placed or positioned poorly, why can't I be upset?
You're doing what I do right now. You're putting words in my mouth that were never actually there. I have no your face right now. I can't even. That my problem with what you were doing wasn't necessarily that you didn't appreciate that an 0-2 ball was thrown right down the middle of the plate. It's the fact that you needed to continually harp on it like the pitcher didn't know that that's what he shouldn't do. I mean, you're going on you're sounding like my grandpa at a game where he's like, why did they rip his face mask right there? Well, he knew he shouldn't have risked his face, but he didn't do it on purpose. We can all be mad at it. You know, you're not supposed to do that, but sometimes it just happens. It's not like Lopez was sitting there and he was like, you know what I should do? I should throw just a hanging breaking ball right over the middle of the plate right now.
Ogres are like onions.
Okay, you can complain about it, though. That's what this podcast is for. I don't understand.
But it doesn't need to be a 5-minute rant.
Okay. It does, because that's how big a mistake it is, Hope. That's how big a mistake it is. If they're talking about it on the radio, and they did it, I mean, it was probably 2 or 3 minutes of Perkins going off. So what's the problem if I spend 90 seconds talking about a guy throwing a pitch where he has no business throwing it on 0-2? This doesn't seem unreasonable. And the fact your text message didn't say you were upset that I talked about it for too long. You just said, I'm on Dan's side, which again, akin to me, is equal to an L for you automatically.
To be fair, if I ever pick up my phone and there's a bunch of messages that I haven't responded to, sometimes I just say I'm on Dan's side just to see what'll happen.
So me think, why waste time? Say lot word when few word do trick.
That is perfect. That is a perfect explanation of how my brain works in those situations.
Anyway, bottom first here. Twins get up on the board early here. They score 5 with, of course, a Manny Margot bunt down the third baseline for a single, followed by a Correa single, the first of many, then a Lewis single, a Buxton single, a Santana double, and a Farmer single, which is basically the most singles that have ever been hit in one inning for the Minnesota Twins.
Did you not know we're the Piranhas? That's what we do.
Since when, Hoax? And then bottom 4, Castro, again, Willie Castro making his presence known with a home run. Then Vasquez with a double, Margot with a double. Margot steals third. Correa gets a hit with infield in to bring in Margot. I don't understand who's producing for this team, Hoax. Reading this box score was baffling. When I was doing the Puckett's pick scores and I had to check Santana and Margot to make sure they didn't score the most points on the team, I was like, I had to do a double take.
Everyone in the lineup got an RBI in today's game. I mean, granted, that's going to happen when you score 17 runs, but yeah, that's what was encouraging about this series. You got a lot of guys producing that hadn't been so far, and sometimes that's what you need to get out of a funk.
All right, so bottom 6 here, Correa with a single followed by a Royce Lewis 2-run homer, because that's all that Royce Lewis knows how to do, Hoax. It's to play a killer third base and do murder baseballs.
It's insane. He's so fun to watch. I can't get over it. I mean, I have no words anymore.
So then top 7, Okert allows 2 runs on a single, a double, and a single, and then there's a weird rain delay before the bottom of the 7th, and then top of the 8th, Thielbar can't get it right. He comes in, walk, double, walk, and then a Correa error at just about the worst possible time. Duran enters, as you alluded to, a walk to load the bases, followed by a double play, and the Twins take a lead of 10-8 into the bottom of the 8th, when the Twins decided, you know what, let's just make really sure that no matter who pitches the 9th inning, we're still going to win this game.
It's just unbelievable. Like, how did that game get to 10-8 after a rain delay, and then they go and score a 7th spot in the 8th? Like, oh, it's so goofy.
Yeah, so Correa had a single, Lewis had a double, Miranda had a double, Buxton walked, Santana had a single, Farmo had a single, Castro had a single that was originally ruled an out, and then they reviewed it. It was a trapped ball. Vasquez with a double and Kepler with a sac fly. I normally don't like to rattle things off like that, but this one is just, it's so baffling who is contributing. I feel like it's really important that we say their names, Hogs.
Well, and they're scoring 7 runs without home runs in this situation. I mean, it's just wild. It's a lot of just singles and doubles and walks and guys getting on base, stuff that we've been harping at them all year, and they're doing it now.
All right, well, with that, Hogs, let's go ahead and jump into our segments with Puckett's Picks Winner.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett! Puckett's Picks Winner.
Well, the listeners, Hogs, finally score some points here. They took Lewis, who had 14. You were in second with Correa with 9, actually, followed by Dan with Miranda with 4, and then I took Kepler, expecting a big bounce-back series, who scored -1. But also, the listeners get the bonus half point because Lewis was the high scorer on the team. But funnily enough, he tied with Santana, but because Lewis had an extra homer, that's the tiebreak, which is quite fascinating.
This one killed me because I thought the whole series that Correa was going to still pull it out for me, and then he goes 5 for 6 in game 3, and I somehow lose it in game 3. Like, just unbelievable.
Pretty shocking. But so season standings here, I'm still in the lead with 12. Hogs, you have 7. Dan and the listeners are now tied at 3.5. But here's the thing, Hogs. Now that Royce Lewis is on the roster and he's healthy, the listeners are going to take him every single time.
Yeah,
he's hard to beat. Hard to beat.
This is going to be a run for a while. Like, it's kind of frustrating, but also awesome at the same time.
All right, well, let's keep pushing here. Beast versus bench.
Beast versus bench.
Losing fun? Is losing fun.
Well, let's keep talking about him, Hogs. Who do you have on your beast?
Well, I'm actually upset with this because you went on this whole spiel about how now you're driving the Royce Lewis train, and I purposely put my beast in after you because I wanted you to have to talk about him, because I wanted to rip you some more about how you are so against him, and now we're just watching this guy, and you just have hearts in your eyes every time you talk about him, which, don't get me wrong, I love it, but I wanted to hear you talk about it. But yeah, I picked Royce Lewis. I mean, duh. Like, how do you not? I mean, we've talked about everything that he already did, hitting the home run in game 1, double in game 2, went 3 for 5 with a homer in game 3. He's electric out there. Too electric for his own hamstrings, apparently, and quadriceps. But yeah, I don't know how you can't pick this guy. It's phenomenal watching him.
He is the one.
So I'm going to go with Correa. He had that one bad error in game 3, but it didn't matter because we scored 17 runs. It's fine. But he goes 8 for 13, only 2 RBI, but that's because half the time he was batting, there was nobody on base in front of him.
Well, and his quote today, too, was just awesome about talking about how, well, I had to get on base because Royce Lewis is coming up behind me and he's going to hit a home run. I mean, Correa right now on the season is batting .290 with an OPS of .815. We're getting every penny we paid for right now.
I want to build a championship culture.
He's doing it. He is building it up, starting with Royce Lewis, which I love. I guess one of us had to put him on our bench, Hogue. So I'm going to let you talk about it because I told you that I wasn't going to talk about him earlier because I don't want to kick him while he's down.
Well, now I feel bad about it. I feel like I'm picking Farmer for my bench after he got hit in the face with a baseball, but I'll keep it short.
You're never going to let that go. I shouldn't have ever done it.
That was so bad. Like, you can't not let that. I mean, that was horrible, but I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I put Thielbar on my bench for the same reasons that we discussed. I mean, he basically lost game 2 for us. Game 3 wasn't that much better. I hope the guy can turn it around, but it is concerning because he's 37 years old. And I mean, selfishly, I want that guy on the team forever because he's one of the few remaining dudes that are older than me.
I do think that's his last outing for a while. I think they're going to put him on the IL. They're not going to send him down to AAA. They're going to say it's an IL stint, and then he'll end up at AAA.
It does seem like this might be one of those Joey Gallo's ankles hurt kind of situations.
Well, speaking of guys being demoted, I got to go with the T-Rex. Alex Kirilloff, he goes 0 for 6 with 3 strikeouts, finally being demoted to AAA. A lot of Twins Twitter has been calling for this for quite some time. I don't think we know yet what the corresponding move will be, but it does seem as though Austin Martin is the likely candidate. It's a little interesting. I thought they might go with Eddie Julian because he's been taking those starts at first at AAA, but no, I think they're still not happy because he's done just about nothing. He hit a home run when he first got down to AAA, and then he stopped trying, apparently, Hogues.
Yeah, and apparently Martin's been lighting it up with, I mean, he's walking a ton and not striking it out at all, and I think his on-base percentage is like 460 or something like that. So yeah, the last rumor I saw was that it was going to be Austin Martin. I just checked right now, and nothing is confirmed, though, but it's crazy because Kirilloff's joining Matt Wallner down there and Eddie Julian, guys that were in the starting lineup that we thought were going to produce, and they just haven't been, so hopefully all 3 of them can turn it around down there.
Let's hope so. With that, let's go on to Rocco's Rewind.
Rocco's Rewind.
So chronologically, we're going to start with you, I think, here, Hogs.
You're just making me feel worse because all of my negative points have the same guy at the end of it. But I do think it was a good idea in game 2 for Rocco to pull Varland. It was about to be his third time through the lineup, and he has been absolutely atrocious his third time through the lineup this year. To be fair, he hasn't been great the first and the second times through, but he was pretty good in this game. So I think that was the right call. Putting Thielbar in there in a close game, I'm not sure that's what you want to do in those situations. And it kind of got proven again later as this series went on. So like you said, I mean, you kind of already answered my question. What do you think is going to happen with him? I think you're probably right. It could be an IL stint and then maybe some rehab starts in AAA, or I don't know. They've got lefties that are ready in that bullpen with Okert and then Funderburg being able to be called up too.
It would be interesting. I think he's the most logical choice to take the spot. I was a little surprised to see Jay Jackson back up with the club. That was a surprise move.
Me too. I mean, you guys kind of said when he left, like, probably bye forever, but here he is again. So I guess we're going to give it another go. And apparently he was throwing even slower in AAA too. So that fastball velocity that he's already lost this year wasn't getting better. I don't know. I kind of feel like he might be mop-up duty for a while.
He is the boomerang of players. So you throw him away and he just keeps coming back. So I'm going to go with game 3, top 7. You're up 10-5 and you have to go to Duran. You can't make this up, Hogs. I mean, you feel for Rocco, the fact that he felt like that's akin to pulling the ejection seat. Is it not? Like if you're up 5 runs and you feel like better go to Duran.
Right? And like it's hard to I think that's the funniest part about this. We've both admitted that we didn't fault him at all for it. It was just like, yeah, I guess let's get him out there. But even with Duran right now, I'm a little nervous when he gets out in those games. He hasn't been as sharp as he was at the beginning of the year. I don't know. It's such a weird, you don't want your quote unquote closer going into a 10-5 game where everyone is agreeing that, yeah, we need him in there. That's the right call right now.
Don't forget to bring a towel.
And I have to say here, to go back to Thielbar in game 3, it's a bold approach. You know, I mean, I understand like you want to get the guy back on the horse, but as I've said once, I'll say again, Hogs, there's a time when you've killed enough horses that it's not a good move to try and get back on top of one of them.
Right? Like I understand like it's a lower leverage situation, but why not a game that we're losing 11-1? Like, can't we just sit him down for a little bit when he can't make it any worse? Because like today, you have a bad game in that game and you end up losing. I mean, we heard that interview after game 2. I would have ran as far away from that interview in game 3 as I could have if they would have ended up losing that game somehow.
Well, Hogs, this is your first time on the podcast since we've had this new sponsor, but surely you know that I love pizza. My family's a big pizza fan, and I have tried a ton of places in the Twin Cities. But when I want the best, Hogs, I go to OG Zaza, which is located inside Potluck Food Hall at Rosedale Center. OG Zaza serves up New Haven-style pizza, Caesar salad, and big-ass breadsticks that are literally 2 feet long. Again, do not sleep on the marinara. I'm telling you, it's delicious. But for the month of June, Hogs, all pizzas are $10 after 5 p.m., every day of the week. Fresh and delicious dinner for the fam that I know isn't going to break the bank. So stop and take advantage, Hogs, of this delicious deal.
I got to get over there. That sounds fantastic. That sounds like that pizza is right up my alley. So I'm going to give it a try.
So good. I literally just had it 2 nights ago, and I still think about it. I think about it. It's so good. it's so good.
Minnesota moment.
I'm just going with the boring ones, I guess. It's Royce Lewis's home run in game 1 because it just seems like every time it's funny hearing Provis on the call like, well, yeah, there he goes again. Are you shocked? No, I am not shocked. The Twins are pushing him for an all-star right now, and I don't even know if I think it's that crazy.
You underestimate my power.
I hope he makes it. So,
I do too.
Like how nuts.
But he's going to hit a home run in the All-Star game. Like, he's just the moxie and savvy on that guy too is what I think makes it so fun. And it just, when he hit that, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to win this game. And it felt like that's how the series was. Like, where Royce goes, we will follow. I mean, even Correa will follow him. I love it.
He's ready. He is on the Royce Lewis train, certainly. But speaking of Correa, this was his first 5-hit game in his career, which is absolutely insane. I guess 5 hits is pretty remarkable. Like, I don't think we realize how insane that is. But when you win a game 17-9, it feels like you had like 80 at-bats to do it.
Yeah.
But really, he could have had 6 hits here because his last at-bat was 109 off the bat with an expected batting average of .520. That's courtesy of Aaron Gleeman. But he could have just as easily had 6 hits today, which would have been even more insane.
He's seeing the ball so well. Like, I totally agree with that pick. Like, it's a fantastic pick with how he's been producing lately.
All right, well, let's keep going here. Mauer's Musings.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's Musings.
It's the cows.
I love that sounder so much,
so
and
good.
there are so few circumstances in which we can play it that I just decided
so
this seemed
good.
like a good time.
You have to. You really do. Well, I actually have to request another sounder for you here, David. We haven't had this sounder in a while, but I need the David's Dumb sounder, please.
Oh, no.
Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed. David's Dumbs.
All right, so longtime listeners of the show will remember that last year, David had an opportunity to bring me and another friend to a ball game, and he was being kind and upgrading his general left field seats to be somewhere closer to home plate. He had an opportunity to be 2 rows away from the infield, but turned them down because we were going to a day game, and he did not want to be in the 68-degree Minnesota sun.
I'm very fair-skinned, Hogs.
So that is the background to my question. My question actually is, what ballpark is number 1 on your list to visit, considering the team, the city, and the stadium? And might I also remind everyone, this is where the David's Dumb comes from. The last time we talked about your dream road trip, you said you wanted to drive from Arizona to Arlington, Texas in August. I don't think you understand how hot it is there, coming from the guy who wouldn't even let me sit in the second row before the stadium. But in truth, I would like to hear your answer.
Well, first of all, Hogs, it's a dry heat down there, from what I understand.
Not in Texas. No, it's not.
Deep in the heart of Texas. So I guess, Oracle is definitely on the list. Actually, I think that's probably number 1 without question. I just don't know when I'm going to make it out that direction to have the opportunity. I haven't been to Wrigley, so Wrigley is probably the one that's more realistic. Every year I take a trip to Indianapolis, and I always look at all of the Chicago team schedules to see if I can catch a Sunday game on my way home. But the 2 guys who I go with on this trip annually aren't big ball guys, and so it takes a lot of convincing to be like, hey, do you mind if we just stop this 9-hour road trip home for a quick 3-hour, leg stretching break?
No big deal. That is one of the things I like, though, about the new schedule is that they're at every NL ballpark every other year. So there's more opportunities for us to go. But yeah, I couldn't disagree with you. Oracle is beautiful. The one reason that I put Oracle above PNC Park is because it has the bay in the background, which not every ballpark can have that. So it's a bit of an unfair advantage, but man, do they ever take advantage of it out there.
Well, we have Nicollet Mall just a few blocks away, Hogs. That's just as good as a river, is it not?
But you take, honestly, though, I've been to probably 11 away stadiums now. You take Target Field, and I'd put it up with just about any other ballpark. It is beautiful. The area around it, it's fine. The Minneapolis and skyline looks beautiful at the ballpark, but it's just hard to compete with a beautiful river and a ocean bay. It's pretty spectacular out there.
So what's number 1 on your list, out of curiosity?
I don't know. I think that's kind of why I asked. I think I've never been to Wrigley either, so I think it kind of has to be Wrigley because I've been to Fenway, I've been to Yankee Stadium. Yeah. So I guess in the moment right now, I would say Wrigley, but honestly, you ask me tomorrow, and it could be a different answer.
That would be a good podcast trip. We should meet up with Dan in Chicago and catch a few games at Wrigley.
Oh, we absolutely should. And T-Mobile's up there on my list, too. So one of these days, we're going to have to go out there and visit him in his neck of the woods, too, out in Seattle.
Yeah, I've driven by it. The Mariners weren't playing when we were in Seattle, which was quite a bummer. So I was around the stadium, but I didn't get to go in at all, and I would have liked. But with that, Hogs, my question is quite simple. Do you think, no coincidence that they were playing the Colorado Rockies, do you think that Paddock, Varland, and Pablo all figured it out, or are the Rockies just that bad?
I love that you're able to list all 3 starters. There's not even one. I saw it. You had this note in here after game 1, and it just said, do you think Paddock has figured it out? And by the end of the series, you were able to add the other 2 guys right in there. No, I don't think they figured it out. But at the same time, maybe. They joke about this all the time in hockey. Sometimes a guy just needs an empty net goal to watch the puck go in, and it turns it around. Maybe that's the bit of the case here. But I need another start before I start putting anything into it.
Same question for Christian Vasquez and Manny Margot.
Right? That's an even more definitive no, I feel like. But again, sometimes you're just putting the ball in play and they start landing for hits. I don't know. It's not like the schedule coming up is brutal either.
Yeah, true story. With that, Hogs, let's go on to the series grades.
Series grades.
So I don't have Dan here to do his whole advanced retreat, but I feel like we should say, again, listener Andy's metric here would put the Rockies are a sub 500 team in a 3-game series, and they went 2-1. And so that would be somewhere between a 5 and a 7 on the advanced and retreat. I don't know what you would give them, Hogs.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And then the well-played baseball here was, I don't know if I would call this series particularly well-played baseball. This was one of the harder ones to grade. It's because I could feel like I could give him a C and defend it, and I could give him an A and defend it. Where did you end up going?
Yeah, so I went with a B just because game 2 was very confusing, and Thielbar basically lost it by himself. I mean, granted, the offense went 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position, so they are certainly at fault as well. But I think a B seems reasonable. A home series, you took 2 of 3. You could have just as easily swept if you had one different guy on your roster.
Right? I went A-. I gave him that little extra bump just because they scored 17 runs on 24 hits today. I don't care who you're playing. That is impressive, and that might be a slump buster for a lot of guys. But yeah, it's a weird one. I don't know how I feel about it. It's a little bit similar to the Pirates series where Dan was saying you just get one or two hits in game 1 and game 2, and maybe you walk out of there feeling way differently. This one's like that too. If we win game 2, we're feeling really good about it because game 1 and game 3 were great. Game 2 just made me feel bad.
On here to Herbie's headlines.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
We need like a breaking news sounder here, Hogs. Joey Chestnut had been banned from the Nathan's hot dog competition after endorsing a vegan hot dog brand, which I realized last episode we did a whole Herbie's headlines about things that weren't really baseball related. What's more baseball related than hot dogs, Hogs?
Why do they care? Who cares if he's endorsing a vegan hot dog brand? Like, honestly, this sounds like it's a big old play.
Well, so then here's the thing. Then today we get another breaking update that the leader of Nathan's or the organizer of the event decided he can play because America needs Joey Chestnut, which I think it would have been a better play if they actually did ban him for a year, and then they like made it seem like it was litigation through the year until
right.
next year. But like you can't do it for 2 days. Like,
yeah.
And honestly, did Nathan's hot dog, if this wasn't a publicity stunt, I hope someone got fired over there because that's the dumbest thing.
Do you watch it? Did you regularly watch it?
It makes me sick to my stomach to see it. I mean, people, a guy looks at me in the stands and think, well, he probably put down a hot dog or two. Well, I could, but I also just, it makes me sick watching these guys do it the way they do.
I watched it 1 year, and yeah, same deal. I just wanted to vomit the entire time. I was like, that's too much. Like, there's no way.
2 other notes here. Cardinals fans, Hogs, give a standing ovation to Pirate Skeens after going 6 1/3 scoreless in St. Louis, which is very Nebraskanian, right? Like, I mean, the Cornhuskers are famous for cheering for the opposing team when they make good plays. What are your thoughts on this, Hogs?
Hate it. Like, I honestly hate it. Like, I'm not even going to justify it. I hate it. I hate every part of it. You just don't cheer for the opposing team.
Have you no joy in your life? Is there no song in your heart?
Nothing like playing your own sounder against you, Hogs.
You know when they got mad at Twins fans for booing Derek Jeter in the All-Star game when it was here? Yeah. That would have been me. 100%. Why would I cheer for a guy that I despise him? It's not like I'm got anything against him personally. It's sports. I don't want him to do well. If you're a Cardinals fan, you don't want Skeens to do well.
You are just an angry man, Hogs. But on to some other good news, which I guess you're going to boo. But so Jackson Merrill hits a walk-off home run for the Padres against the A's, and he is the youngest player ever with 2 home runs in a game, with one of them as a walk-off. He's 21 years old. Again, I would argue this has one too many variables for it to actually note. Okay, he hit 2 home runs in the game. He's the youngest to do that. Oh, no, he's not quite the youngest. However, one of them was a walk-off, so he is the youngest to do that. It's like, okay, guys, like let's get our act together.
I had to fight to interrupt you there because as you were saying it, I wanted to be like, that's the most ESPN stat I've ever heard, where it's like, I mean, you could find a Major League Baseball stat about me, I think, if you tried to put enough qualifiers in there.
The first guy to watch 49 baseball games on the same spot on the couch, eating the same snack, but then switching it halfway through to an applesauce that he ate that his son forgot to finish.
Who records all of this? Like, who looks this up? Like, it's wild.
I just assume it's
cool.
ChatGPT.
Yeah,
they're just like, hey, give us a stat that makes this guy look unique.
It is cool, but yeah, once you get to that third stat, you're just kind of like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but he'll have a chance to defend himself. It's kind of like when Dan starts talking about series grades, and you hear like the first 2 numbers and you're really into it, and then you get to the third one and you're like, okay, when's this done now?
Ogres are like onions. End of story.
With that, Hogs, let's go ahead and go to Puckett's picks for the A's series.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. Puckett's picks.
So the listeners, shockingly, are going to take Royce Lewis. I pick next. I'm going to go with Correa. And then Dan is going back to who had a really good series against the Rockies, so not a bad pick. So that just leaves you, Hogs.
I have no idea right now. And like, I feel like I'm in the worst spot. You don't want to keep getting second to the listeners winning with Lewis. Oh, I want to do the dartboard thing almost, but I think I'm going to go with Castro. We read his name a lot. And if anything else, he's going to get on base with getting hit by pitches and then maybe steal some base. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's not, if I pick Santana, there's no way he's going to do what he did in this series. I can't pick. Yeah, I'm going Castro. Final answer.
Sometimes I'll start a sentence and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, Hogs, thanks so much for filling in. Again, you're going to fill in for me actually on Sunday, so it'll be you and Dan. But if you wouldn't mind, Hogs, can you send us out?
I absolutely can. Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win and find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on your favorite podcast platforms so that you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. Link in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins.
That'll wrap up another episode of Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.